This is a video message to Azerbaijani and Turkish people from a native Armenian Christian. Peace be upon you. Even though your leaders seek the destruction of Christians, the Christians pray regardless for your well-being. I want to give an attention to the matter of the Azeri and Armenian conflict, which is taking place now in Artsakh, or Karabakh, as many would call it, and also reflect on the involvement of Turkey. It is unfortunate that an all-out war has been initiated in the time when COVID-19 and the elections in the US has the full attention. But regardless, I still wish to sit next to you, the Azerbaijani and Turkish people, in a humane way and look at the facts which are in front of us regarding the war that is going on in a fair and objective manner, with hope that we would come to a healthy consensus. For those who are hearing this for the first time, I plead that you also lend me a small bit of your time and some patience, because I believe this is more than just a regional conflict. Looking first at the political conflict between Armenia and Azerbaijan, there is a war now going on in Artsakh. The Azerbaijani people claim that the land Artsakh, as they call Karabakh, is Azerbaijani ground, and some of them even debate that it has always been Azerbaijani territory, thus their justification for the military attacks on Artsakh, which by the way has only Armenian civilians in it. However, when we take a deep dive into the historicity of Artsakh, we find number one, undeniable proof, which I'm going to present to you, that Artsakh has always been inhabited by Armenians for the past thousands of years. Number two, we find undeniable proof that Artsakh has never been Azerbaijani residential area. Please bear with me as we go through these facts, starting from the classical antiquity, and we're going to work all the way to the modern age. Jumping right to it, in the time of classical antiquity, there was no Azerbaijan on the map, if you take a look at it. Instead, there was Caucasian Albania, which is north of the modern Azerbaijan. Let us not mistake them for the Balkan Albanians. Those are two different people. Some Azerbaijanis believe that they are the descendants of the people of Caucasian Albanians, which were the descendants of the Persian Achaemenid Empire. So starting from there, where are the borders from the border lines of Caucasian Albania and Armenian Kingdom? According to the historians, starting from Pliny the Elder, it has always been known that the river Kura, also known as the River of Cyrus in Greco-Roman language, has been the dividing line between the Armenian Kingdom and the Caucasian Albania. Here is the River Cyrus. On top of it you see Caucasian Albania, and bottom of the river you see Armenian, with Artsakh below the river line, thus being part of the Armenian Kingdom. Also, the other historians from the Greco-Roman era, such as Claudius Ptolemaeus, testify that the river Kura is a dividing line between the Armenian border, ending with the province Utik on the north side of the Armenian borderline. Authoritative encyclopedias on the antiquity by Paulus also named the river Kura the southern border of Caucasian Albania. The famous historian Strabo not only confirms Kura being the dividing line, such as the previous historians have, between Armenia and Caucasian Albania, he also adds a very small, important detail. He mentions the province Artsakh as Orkistin in a Greco-Roman language. And when we double check the location of Orkistin in the ancient historical maps, we find that Orkistin is exact location as Artsakh, which actually still is until this day. So from this historical facts, from classical antiquity, we get the following: that the river Kura is seen as the dividing line between a Caucasian Albania and Armenia. Thus Artsakh being part of Armenia since it's the south side of the Kura river. And number two, that Artsakh itself actually already existed back then as an Armenian province with Armenian population. Later, when Caucasian Albania grew into a stronger nation, they produced a list of their provinces. Let us take a look at the list of their registered provinces. It follows: Cambisin, Gitaro, Elnu, Bech, Shake, Xolmaz, Kapalak, Hambasi, Gelafu, Hejeri, Kaladasht. As you can see, there is no Artsakh in the list of Caucasian Albanian. Why? Because Artsakh was part of the Armenian provinces. As we approach the 7th and 8th century, something really tragic starts to happen to the Caucasian Albanians. On one point, you see them on the map, and after the 7th century, there is no Caucasian Albania anymore on the map, nowhere to be found. So what happened? Islam happened. The Islamic military expansion campaigns began in the 7th century. All non-Muslim countries were fought. Where the Islamic armies spread, they presented three choices: either die, or submit to the Islam and live freely as a Muslim, or pay the monthly jizya tax if you don't want us to kill you, if you want to live in an Islamic state as a non-Muslim, which is, by the way, commanded in Quran chapter 9, verse 29. This happened starting from Arabian Peninsula all the way to the northern African continent, to Spain, even France, through Byzantium, all the way to Greece and Macedonia. Armenia and Caucasian Albania were, of course, no less targets of the Islamic Jihad. Both were Christian countries, with Armenia being the first Christian nation in the world, and Albania following actually right after it, when King Urnair accepted the Christian faith in the 4th century. And seeing that both were Christian, that was actually a reason enough to be a target for the Islamic expansions. Especially Christians and Jews have a very special place in the Islam, according to Quran chapter 98, verse 6, as in Quran chapter 9, verse 30. Unfortunately, in the year 705 AD, the Caucasian Albanians, or at least what was left of it, after the warring between the Byzantium Empire and the Sassanid Empire on their own land, on Caucasian Albanian lands, they were massacred by the Islamic Abbasid Caliphate. Some small tribes remained, where the majority fled and Armenicized and Georgicized. This is the reason, starting from that point, that you do not find Caucasian Albania anywhere anymore on the map, because it was fully eradicated. In the same context of Islamic military conquests, we see for the first time the mentioning of the word Azerbaijan by the Arabs as Adarbargan, later on used as Azerbaijan. And these were not Caucasian Albanian people, they were not Armenian people, but these people were from Atropatene, Persian people located north of the Persian Empire and south of the Armenian borders. The word Azerbaijan is also, as a matter of fact, even mentioned in the Islamic sources, where the jihad is mentioned to these people, as written in Sahih al-Bukhari 49:87, which reads, Hudayfa bin al-Yaman came to Uthman at the time when the people of Sham and the people of Iraq were waging war to conquer Armenia and Azerbaijan. As the Muslims carried out the massacre of the majority of Atropatene, which are actually known in the Arabic context as the Azerbaijan Persian people, some chose to convert from Zoroastrianism and Christianity to Islam. Some started to pay and accept to pay the jizya tax, and some took refuge to nearby countries, such as Armenia or the previous land of Caucasian Albania, which, by the way, was pretty much of a desolated place by then. What is the important lesson here? Number one, these were people who were called Azerbaijani in the first place. They are the ones, these are Atropatene people. And number two, these people, who were actually from origin Persian people, were nowhere near Artsakh. Artsakh was way north of it. Around the same context, a little later, The Turkish people also started having hard times with the Muslims, because previously Muhammad had made some pretty heartwarming statement regarding the Turks as well. As was written in the Hadith, Sahih al-Bukhari 29:28, Allah's Messenger said, "The hour will not be established until you, O Muslims, fight the Turks." As also written in Sahih Muslim 29:12d, "The last hour would not come until the Muslims fight with the Turks, a people whose faces will be like hammered shields." That's a pretty racist statement, by the way, but apart from that, so the Turks were a special target to the Muslims because of these statements made by Muhammad, and they were being fought. Turks were captured and used as slaves by the Muslims during the Islamic conquests. Majority of Turks wishing for freedom then, by force submitted themselves to the Islam, and their children were born into the Islamic culture. And surprisingly, their children started also massacring others in the name of Islam. The Muslim Turks grew stronger and spread into Byzantium, the modern day of Turkey. After many battles there, they conquered and captured the Byzantium and settled there. And there the Islamic conquering continued. To give you an idea of the magnitude of the horror that was committed, take the city of Ani, for example, the once main and the most influential city of Armenia. It's gone now. What happened to it? The Islamic army paid a visit. The 13th century Muslim historian Sibt ibn al-Jawzi recounted the testimony after the Muslim army broke the city's defenses, as he writes, "The army entered the city, massacred its inhabitants, pillaged and burned it, leaving it in ruins, and taking prisoners all those who remained alive. The dead bodies were so many that they blocked the streets. One could not go anywhere without stepping over them, and the number of prisoners was no less than 50,000 souls. I was determined to enter the city and see the destruction with my own eyes. I tried to find a street in which I would not have to walk over the corpses, but that was impossible." To add an extra layer to the tragedy to it, for the Turkish fears among us, my friends, I call you my friends even though your leaders seek the destruction of Christians. If you are Turkish and you look something like this, there is almost 100% chance that you probably have Armenian blood, maybe Greek, because the original Turks, they looked like this. How do we know this? Historical facts. Just look it up. Also, prophet of the Islam also describes the resemblance of the original Turkish people as is written in Sahih al-Bukhari 29:28, Turks, people with small eyes, red faces, and flat noses. And of course, don't forget the racist statement, people whose faces will be like hammered shields. You have an Aryan look now because in course of centuries your pre-grandmother was captured as a slave by a misled and forced to submit to the Islam Turkish people after their families were massacred in front of their eyes. So yeah, funny when Aryan Turkish people curse the Armenians and the Greeks while they themselves have the same roots. This is so sad, but not as sad as for your Armenian pre-grandmother that was captured as a young lady after her whole family was massacred in the name of Islam. Don't misunderstand me. I do not hate the Turkish people nor the Azerbaijani people, because I understand that their forefathers were misled into doing this. As a matter of fact, your Turkish forefathers were massacred and enslaved by the Islam themselves before they submitted to the Islam. Why is this sad history important for our case now? After the Turkish Muslims settled in the Byzantium, massive Turkification took place. The Turkish Muslims moved in waves to the land previously inhabited by the Caucasian Albanians, and Turkicized everyone there, the remaining few Albanians, the refugees from Armenia, Atropatene people, Georgian people, the remaining small tribes there from previous Albania, and all the Islamicized people who also settled there. As R. Hewson describes, by and large, most of the Albanian tribes were absorbed by the Turkish tribes who invaded the region in waves, beginning in the 11th century, while the remaining few were Armenicized or Georgianized. The Azerbaijan ethos of today formed largely on basis of shared religion, incorporating Turkish-speaking tribes, Islamicized Iranian speakers, including Kurds, Tats, and Talishins, Islamicized Armenians, and Islamicized Georgians, and some already partially Iranized, Armenicized, and Georgianized Albanians. This is the ethos of the modern Azerbaijani people. These are facts. This is also the reason why the Azeri people speak the Turkish language and have the same culture. So far, we can sum up the following facts. Number 1. Artsakh was not a Caucasian Albanian province. Number 2. The Caucasian Albania does not exist anymore. Number 3. The first people called Azerbaijanis, the northern Persian Atropatene people, were nowhere near Artsakh. Finally, number 4. The ethos of the modern Azerbaijanis is the result of the Turkification of the refugees in the previous Caucasian Albanian lands. If these are the facts, which they are, then there can no claim be done that the Azerbaijani people were always the inhabitants of Artsakh. As a matter of fact, this even proves that Artsakh is way older than the Azerbaijani ethos. Thus, the premise by the Azerbaijani people, Artsakh has always been Azerbaijan, is hereby disproven. Show me please that I'm wrong. You are welcome to reply in the comment section below. As for the premise that Artsakh has always been inhabited by Armenians, we have seen from the historical facts that that was the case starting from the classical antiquity. That was even the case throughout the Middle Ages. Number 1, in a document of Tsar Peter the Great on March 14, 1717, the Patriarch Gandzasar monastery reports that Artsakh has 900 Armenian villages. Number 2, in his letter in 1769, the Russian Count Pipanin, the Georgian king Erekel II, in his description of Artsakh says, 7 families rule the region of Khamsa Melikdom, location Artsakh. The population is totally Armenian, quote King Erekel II. Thus far, the historical facts regarding the Middle Ages. Now to the modern age, we see that any demographical source will show you that at the beginning of the 20th century, the most of the majority, around 90% of the population of Artsakh is Armenian. These historical facts, summed up, gives us the following logical deduction for the case for Armenia, which then follows. Number 1. If a land is populated by a specific tribe, starting from the classical antiquity all the way to the present age, then that land has always been populated by that specific tribe since the classical antiquity. Number 2, Artsakh has been populated by Armenians starting from the classical antiquity all the way to the present age. Thus, Artsakh has always been Armenian populated province starting from the classical antiquity. Thus, the premise that Artsakh has always been Armenian populated area is hereby proven. As to add, the name Artsakh is the original name of the land, not Karabakh. The name Karabakh itself, which means black garden, is a later invention which was formed somewhere around the 13th, 14th century, more than 1,000 years later after it was named Artsakh. This is history, guys. These are facts, and you have received an undeniable proof that Artsakh is Armenian populated land and has always been Armenian populated land. Any other story you hear than this is a lie. It's not true. No Armenian has ever occupied Artsakh from someone else. There have always been Armenians there. Others, especially Muslim countries, have always tried to occupy it from the Armenians. Many empires came and went, but these Armenians, these people, they stayed. So why is there a war for the land of Artsakh between Azerbaijan and Armenia when we have such an overwhelming proof that Artsakh is Armenian? That started after the fall of the Russian Empire. Until 1918, both Armenia and Azerbaijan were part of the Russian Empire. When the Russian Empire fell in the year 1918, both came to a conflict saying Artsakh is theirs. That Azerbaijan even made the claim was actually absurd. You understand now why. But Azerbaijan eventually fairly renounced sovereignty for the claim over Karabakh, which was officially endorsed by the government of the Russian Soviet Federative Social Republic, also known as RSFSR. The 1920-1921 annual report of the RSFSR, People Commissioned Foreign Affairs, addressed to the supreme authority of the land, the 11th Congress of the Soviets, which reads as follows. In June 1921, the agreement was signed by Armenia and Azerbaijan on Nagorno-Karabakh to be part of Soviet Armenia. This is the signed document. However, 1 month later, Joseph Stalin, the amazing mustache man, outside of any consensus from the Armenian side, broke the agreement on 5th of July 1921 without any vote, stated, proceeding from the necessity of establishing peace between Muslims and Armenians, the economic ties between Lower and Upper Karabakh, and the permanent ties of Nagorno-Karabakh with Azerbaijan, leave Nagorno-Karabakh in Azerbaijan SSR, granting it wide regional autonomy, with the administrative center of Sushi included in the autonomous region. The reason why he did this is believed to be so that he could persuade Turkey to join with Russia against the Western powers. As the historian Robert John Service says, had Turkey not been an issue, Stalin would have left Karabakh under Armenian control. He stretched and drew the Azerbaijani borderline in such a way that Artsakh fell in the Azerbaijani territory, which instead of creating peace, as Stalin stated, it directly brought forth conflict. As a result, the Nagorno-Karabakh Autonomous Oblast was established within the borders of Azerbaijan Soviet Social Republic of July 7, 1923. So it was nor Armenia nor Azerbaijan, an autonomous state within Azerbaijan territory. How strange is that? To give an example how strange and corrupt this act was, let's say Europe is being led by a corrupt dictator, someone like Stalin, let's say Hitler. At the same time, there are two European countries, Netherlands and Belgium, which are in conflict with each other. Then one day, Hitler decides to draw the border lines and draws the borders of Belgium in such a way that the Dutch province of Limburg, with its Dutch people in it, falls in the Belgian territory. But says, at the same time, Limburg is an autonomous state in Belgian territory. And since then, Limburg is registered as an autonomous state in Belgian land, and the whole world, not knowing the full truth, has that also registered in their system. How is that okay? It certainly is not fair. Is Netherlands then just going to say, oh, okay, guys from Limburg, sorry, but you need to leave that place where you have lived literally for thousands of years because of some psycho leader said you have to go. Go where, you ask? I don't know, go buy somewhere a house with the money you probably don't have. No, Netherlands is obviously going to stand up for its country and its own people. This is exactly what is going on in Artsakh. It is stupid, corrupt, unfair, and should have been corrected right on the spot. But it did not get corrected. As a matter of fact, Azerbaijan and Turkey did not say, "We understand Stalin was a corrupt leader, it's wrong what happened back then, let's correct it." No, what did they say and what did they do? After the collapse of the Soviet Union on December 25th, 1991, Azerbaijan started an all-out war with the argument that the Armenians should leave Artsakh because they are occupying their lands. Whoa! The Azerbaijani leaders don't only lie and twist the facts that Armenians are now so-called the occupiers of Artsakh, which they aren't, because they never occupied someone else's land. They were always there. It's thanks to Stalin actually that it became a mess. But worse, the Azerbaijani leaders broke the law by attacking a registered autonomous independent state. That is a criminal act. And now, 30 years later again, Azerbaijani leaders still commit criminal and illegal acts. They use cluster bombs, which are illegal weapons. They bring Islamic jihadists to join their Islamic cause, the jihadists against whom the whole world was fighting against. They are actively cleansing all the Christian historical, cultural and Christian architectures in Nakhichevan, which are protected, by the way, protected properties by the UNESCO. For all these things, including the attacking, their leaders, they need to give an answer to the world. I mean, it's not like the world doesn't know that the Azeri leaders are helping Turkey to achieve its Islamic Ottoman re-establishment. We all know that's the main goal, not Artsakh, especially since the Mayor of Baku said in 2005, "Our goal is the complete elimination of the Armenians. You Nazis eliminated the Jews in 1930s and in 40s, right? You should be able to understand us." Okay, since we're done proving the disposition and the dishonesty of the Azerbaijan leaders, who have absolutely no ground to stand on for their justification, especially for the claim for Artsakh, even though for the corrupt and wrong dictator decision made by Stalin, which I believe should be rectified and corrected, that I believe will solve the dilemma of Artsakh on paper. But let us now focus on the real motive behind the conflict and the part Turkey plays. The past 2 months, a series of very intriguing events have happened, one after another, in Turkey. First, Erdogan deports influential Christian priests from Turkey. Then, suddenly turns Hagia Sophia and other monumental churches to mosques, and makes statements like, "We will finish what we have started," of which people logically then would react, "Oh, so you do admit the genocide the Turkish leader previously committed." Erdogan backs up Azerbaijan in attacking the Christian Armenians without any consensus, nor forwarding the case to the NATO, allows the jihadists to enter through Syria into Azerbaijan to fight the Christian Armenians, makes a declaration to start war with Greeks and Jews, and so on. Look at this example. Erdogan says, "Jerusalem is ours, we built it." Everyone knows that's not true. Erdogan doesn't own Jerusalem, nor built it. Jerusalem is older than Turkey. If his logic is that when, in a time of Ottoman Empire, when they had control over Jerusalem, and the Ottomans built maybe 1 or 2 towers, and because they built 1 or 2 towers in Jerusalem, that Jerusalem is therefore theirs. Then let me ask you this question. Who built the Hagia Sophia? People have to understand that this is a religious war, that Erdogan, when he is lying, he's doing it for the benefit for the Islam, and that is allowed in the Islamic tradition. Look it up, it's called taqiyya. And the reason why he's so eager to come up with such cheap arguments for himself and for others as a justification to attack and take Jerusalem is not only because of the Dome of the Rock, but also to grant Muslims the access to come and kill the Jews. As written in the Islamic hadith sources, Sahih Bukhari 29:22, Muhammad states, "The last hour would not come unless the Muslims will fight against the Jews, and the Muslims would kill them until the Jews would hide themselves behind a stone or behind a tree, and the stone or the tree would say, 'Muslim, O servant of Allah, there's a Jew behind me, come and kill him.'" And the same religious war is being fought in Armenia now. That is what's really going on there. The cleansing of Christian Armenians to build an Ottoman Empire. Armenians want peace and they want to live. And glory to God that Christian Armenians are still miraculously alive through all these centuries. But if Armenians lay down their weapons, stop defending themselves, there will be no Armenia anymore. The Islamic armies are here again, standing, knocking on the borders of Armenia with Turks, Azeris, the Syrian jihadis, the Pakistani jihadis, the Afghani jihadis, against a small number of Christian Armenians, with no one at their side. But Armenians are not alone. They have their God, Lord Christ, on whom they rely and on whom they have relied all this time, who sustains them and who has sustained them all this time. I pray that that may continue. I pray also that other people stand up for this injustice. I pray that even Turkish and Azeri people make a stand against their leaders. And many already have. Amazing young generation, fearless and eager to stand for justice. You're an inspiration and your courage is more than commendable. I ask also the viewers to stand and support Armenia to survive this attack. If you choose to help Armenia, you can do that by donating on one of these links you see on the screen. There is huge need in medical aid, so every help is appreciated. Also, once again, to spread awareness, please share this message. Like and subscribe our page for more content, and let's work together towards peace that we long for. Thank you for your time, and peace be with you all.